You know, there's something nobody tells you about marriage. They don't tell you that love, as powerful as it is, sometimes isn't enough. They don't tell you that the person you die for can become the person you can barely look at across the dinner table. And they definitely don't tell you that the end of a marriage doesn't always come with screaming matches or infidelity. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in the space between a dirty plate and a wounded ego. This is the story of David and Michelle. And I need you to listen closely, because their story might be happening in your home right now. David met Michelle at a corporate event 7 years ago. She was this force of nature, confident, ambitious, with a laugh that could light up an entire room. He was quieter, thoughtful, the kind of man who noticed when someone needed their coffee refilled before they asked. Their courtship was the stuff of romance novels. He'd leave little notes in her briefcase before big presentations. She'd cancel important meetings just to watch him play basketball with his friends. They balanced each other perfectly. She was fire, he was water. And when they got married 3 years into their relationship, everyone said they were looking at a forever kind of love. For the first 2 years of marriage, they were happy. Deliriously, stupidly happy. Michelle was climbing the corporate ladder at a marketing firm, and David was working as a mid-level analyst at a tech company. They had a modest apartment, dreams bigger than their savings account, and a love that felt unshakable. But life has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. It started when Michelle got promoted to senior director. The raise was substantial, almost double what David was making. Around the same time, David's company started downsizing. He wasn't laid off, but the writing was on the wall. The stress was eating him alive, affecting his health, stealing his sleep. One evening, Michelle came home to find David staring at his laptop, his face pale. "What's wrong?" she asked, kicking off her heels. He looked up at her, and she saw something she'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. "I've been thinking," he said slowly. "What if I quit? What if I start freelancing from home? I could build my own client base, set my own hours. And honestly, Michelle, this job is killing me." Michelle sat down beside him, taking his hand. "If that's what you need, baby, we'll make it work. We'll be fine. I've got us covered." And just like that, their lives shifted. The first few months were actually beautiful. David set up a home office, started taking on freelance projects, and seemed lighter than he'd been in years. Michelle would come home to the smell of dinner cooking, something David had started doing because he had more time now. She'd kick off her shoes, kiss her husband, and feel grateful that they'd made this decision together. But somewhere around month 4, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Michelle would come home to find dishes in the sink. The laundry would be piling up. David would be so focused on a project that he'd forget to start dinner. And Michelle, who was working 12-hour days, managing a team of 15 people, and carrying the financial weight of their household, started to feel resentful. One Friday evening, she walked in exhausted. There was a crucial pitch on Monday, her boss was breathing down her neck, and all she wanted was to come home to some semblance of order. Instead, she found David at his computer, wearing the same sweatpants he'd had on for 2 days, surrounded by coffee cups, the kitchen a disaster zone. "David," she said, her voice tight. "Did you eat today?" He barely looked up. "Yeah, I grabbed some cereal. The dishes are still in the sink from yesterday. I'll get to them, babe. I'm just in the middle of this project. Client wants it by tonight." Michelle felt something crack inside her chest. She set down her briefcase, walked to the kitchen, and started washing the dishes herself. Her hands were shaking. She didn't know if it was from exhaustion or anger or something else entirely. That night, after David had submitted his project and finally noticed his wife's cold silence, they had their first real fight. "Michelle, what's going on? You've barely said 2 words to me all evening." She turned from the bedroom window, where she'd been staring out at the city lights, trying to calm the storm inside her. "I'm tired, David. I know you're working hard, baby. But this project. No." Her voice was sharper than she intended. "I'm not talking about work tired. I'm talking about this. Us. This situation." David's face fell. "What situation?" And then it all came pouring out. The words she'd been swallowing for months. "You're home all day, David. All day. And I come back to a messy house, no dinner, dishes everywhere. I'm working myself to the bone, paying all our bills, and I can't even come home to a clean space. I'm working too, Michelle. Just because I'm home doesn't mean I'm sitting around watching TV. I know that. But you have flexibility that I don't have. Is it really too much to ask that you help maintain our home? That you cook sometimes? Do the laundry? I'm drowning here, and you're acting like household responsibilities are beneath you. David stood up, his jaw clenched. So that's what this is about? Because you make more money now, I'm supposed to what? Be your housewife. The word hung in the air between them like poison. Michelle felt like he'd slapped her. That's not what I said. But it's what you meant, isn't it? I'm the man. I'm supposed to be the provider. And now that I'm not, you want me to wear an apron and have your dinner ready when you get home. Don't twist my words, David. I'm asking for partnership. I'm asking you to see that I'm exhausted and need help. And I'm telling you that I'm not your maid. The silence that followed was deafening. They both stood there, chests heaving, realizing they'd crossed a line they couldn't uncross. After that night, something fundamental shifted. They started keeping score. Michelle would note every time she did the dishes. David would make a point of cooking dinner, then leave the kitchen a mess as if to prove a point. The home that had once been their sanctuary became a battlefield of passive-aggressive gestures. David's freelancing was actually going well. He was making decent money, though not nearly what Michelle made. But every time she brought up household chores, he'd throw his work in her face. I worked 8 hours today too, Michelle. In your pajamas, from our couch. I'm in back-to-back meetings, managing client crises, fighting rush-hour traffic. So my work doesn't count because I'm comfortable while I do it? Around and around they went, the same arguments wearing different clothes. Michelle started coming home later, sometimes stopping at her office friend Sarah's place for a glass of wine just to delay facing the mess at home. David started taking his laptop to coffee shops, anything to avoid the tension that had taken residence in their apartment like an unwelcome guest. Their friends started noticing. At dinner parties, the easy affection between them was gone. Michelle would make a comment about David working from home, and he'd flinch like she'd struck him. David would mention Michelle's long hours, and she'd get this look in her eyes, something between hurt and fury. It came on their 4th wedding anniversary. Michelle had planned to leave work early, thinking maybe they could recapture some of what they'd lost. She'd made reservations at the restaurant where David had proposed. She'd bought a new dress. She was trying, desperately trying, to save what was slipping through her fingers. She came home at 6 p.m. to find David still in his home office, on a video call. She changed into her dress, did her makeup, and waited. The reservation was for 7:30 p.m. At 7:15 p.m., David was still on the call. At 7:30 p.m., Michelle called the restaurant and canceled. At 8 p.m., David finally emerged, saw Michelle sitting on the couch in her dress, mascara streaked down her face, and the truth of what he'd done hit him. Oh God, Michelle. I'm so sorry. I lost track of time. This client. Don't. Her voice was eerily calm. Just don't. We can still go. I'll get ready right now. Give me 10 minutes. It's not about the dinner, David. She looked up at him, and he saw something in her eyes that terrified him. Resignation. When did we become people who hurt each other? David sat down beside her, and for the first time in months, they were honest. I feel like less of a man, he whispered. Every time you come home and see the house isn't perfect, every time you mention the chores, I hear you saying I'm not enough. That because I don't make what you make, I need to compensate by being. I don't know, the little housewife. Michelle's tears fell harder. And I feel like I'm failing at everything. I'm working myself to death, and I come home to more work. I feel alone, David. Like I'm carrying everything by myself. I don't want a housewife. I want a partner. I want the man I married who wasn't afraid to be a team with me. They sat in the silence of their broken anniversary, two people who loved each other desperately but had forgotten how to show it. The next morning, Michelle woke up to the smell of coffee. She walked into the kitchen to find David cooking breakfast, the kitchen clean, dishes done. I've been thinking all night, he said, not turning around. You were right. About a lot of things. I let my ego get in the way of being a good husband. I let some outdated idea of masculinity make me blind to your pain. Michelle leaned against the doorframe, afraid to hope. But you were also wrong about some things, he continued, finally facing her. This isn't about money. This was never about money. This is about respect. You've made me feel like my work doesn't matter because I'm home. Like I'm less than because I'm not in a suit fighting traffic every day. I never meant. I know. But that's how it felt. We both hurt each other, Michelle. We both let our pride destroy something beautiful. They stood there, the breakfast getting cold, both of them realizing they were at a crossroads. Here's what nobody tells you about marriage. It's not about finding the perfect person. It's about two imperfect people deciding, every single day, to choose each other over their ego, their pride, their hurt feelings. David and Michelle had a choice to make. They could keep fighting the same fight, keep hurting each other with the same weapons, until there was nothing left but resentment and regret. Or they could do the harder thing, they could change. They chose to try. It wasn't easy. David had to confront internalized beliefs about masculinity that he didn't even know he had. The idea that his worth as a man was tied to his paycheck. That household work was somehow beneath him. That asking for help or admitting he was struggling made him weak. Michelle had to confront her own biases too. The way she'd weaponized her income, even subconsciously. How she'd let her exhaustion turn into contempt. How she'd stopped seeing her husband as a partner and started seeing him as another problem to manage. They started having hard conversations. Real ones. They divided household tasks not based on who made more money, but based on who had more time and what each person actually enjoyed doing. David started meal planning and grocery shopping. He actually liked it. Michelle took over the finances entirely. It played to her strengths. They created rules. Work stops at 7 p.m. unless it's an emergency. Friday nights are sacred. No work, no phones, just them. They started thanking each other for the invisible work, David for managing their home, Michelle for carrying the financial weight. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, they started to heal. I wish I could tell you that David and Michelle's story has a fairy tale ending. The truth is, I don't know how their story ends. Because marriage isn't a destination, it's a journey you take every single day. But I know they're still together. I know they're still fighting for each other instead of against each other. And I know they learned something that all of us need to hear. Love is not enough. Love needs respect. Love needs humility. Love needs the courage to examine your own biases and be willing to change. Love needs partners who value each other's contributions, regardless of the dollar amount attached to them. The man who works from home isn't less of a man because he does laundry. The woman who earns more isn't less of a woman because she's the breadwinner. These are lies we tell ourselves, stories society wrote that we never questioned. The truth is simpler and harder than that. Partnership means showing up for each other, even when your ego screams at you to stand your ground. It means seeing your spouse's pain and choosing to address it, even when you feel wronged too. It means understanding that there's no scoreboard in a marriage. When one person loses, you both lose. If you're in a relationship where money has become a weapon, where pride is destroying your partnership, where you're keeping score instead of keeping promises, hear me, it's not too late. But it requires something from you. It requires you to be brave enough to be wrong. To be humble enough to change. To love your partner more than you love being right. And if you're the person making more money, remember, your partner's worth isn't measured in their paycheck. Their contributions to your life, your home, your family matter just as much as the numbers in a bank account. If you're the person making less, remember, there's no shame in adapting to your circumstances. Real strength isn't about conforming to outdated gender roles. It's about doing whatever it takes to make your partnership work, even when it challenges your ego. Marriage is a dance, and sometimes you lead, and sometimes you follow. The key is moving together. David and Michelle's story isn't unique. Right now, in homes all around the world, couples are fighting the same battle. Pride versus partnership. Ego versus love. Tradition versus reality. The question is, which side will win in your home? If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of your own struggles or gave you hope for your own relationships, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for Midnight Confessions. Because every week, we bring you stories like this, real, raw, and honest stories about the human experience. We talk about the things that keep us up at night, the fears we don't voice, the struggles we face behind closed doors. And we do it together, as a community that believes in honesty, growth, and the power of shared stories. So subscribe to Midnight Confessions. Ring that notification bell. And join us next time as we explore another chapter in the beautiful, messy, complicated journey of being human. Until then, remember, love is a choice you make every day. Choose wisely. Choose humbly. Choose love over pride. This is Midnight Confessions, reminding you that your story matters. Don't forget to subscribe to Midnight Confessions for more true stories that will move your soul. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Comment below with your thoughts. Have you experienced something similar? How did you handle it? Let's support each other in the comments.